We are looking to see it. There we go. We're getting some timing. It should be popping up somewhere. Please. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, a little bit of technical issues. Well, we are live this morning, as we have been recently on Facebook and YouTube. So we trust that the equipment is working properly and that you can hear me. Casper was just with me. I don't know if you lost him, but here we go. Here we go. All right. Well, so here we are in this interesting time. There certainly is a lot of chaos breaking through. And what we need to do in the midst of that chaos is make sure that each one of us as light workers in the world can stay centered and know that something good is unfolding because you're holding the consciousness of something good. You and I, and together with light workers all around the world, we are holding the consciousness of something good. Now, oftentimes, we see the storm before we see the silver lining. And the silver lining is always there and shall be revealed. There's a new and greater good coming forth. And that's what we need to have happen, is this greater good coming forth. So what happens to you and me is we get attracted to the outside world. We begin to look at the newspapers, we begin to look at our bank accounts, we begin to look at our groceries and whatever material things we have that need repair or updating. And we look at the material world and we see something wrong. And then we think that we need to, well, let me say not something wrong. We see something disharmonious because something within us can feel the disharmony, yeah? Something within us knows something is not in balance. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is regardless what's happening in the outside world, you and I must remember that the law of the circle, which is the law of life or the law of mind, is receiving from us. We repeat these things all the time because they're the essential principles. Where my attention goes, my energy flows. What I think about tends to come about. My consciousness is in fact directly connected to the law of life, the circle of life. And remember, the circle of life is not, the law of the circle is not a law, or the law of mind is not a law given to some, it's a law given to all. And it's not a law that cares whether you know that it's working or not, it's working all the time, no matter what. So the sum total of everything I think, say, do, and feel. So even those passing emotions where we get bummed out or we get depressed, they make an impress on the law. That's why it becomes very important for us as awakening human beings to be able to observe what's happening in our consciousness. You know, there's a wonderful part of psychology called psychosynthesis. Roberto Assagioli created that, and his concept was that we have a soul nature, that the soul nature is the guiding force, and that would be the I am presence. The I am presence is the guiding force, and the I am presence is constantly guiding us and giving us direction. But are we paying attention to it? Because that's the I am that can see all of the other sub-personalities. I am angry, I am sad, I am happy, I am upset, I am nervous. All of those other parts are happening while the self of the self is observing. And it's up to you and I to rise up to that level of self to be able to observe what's happening between our vibration, what our intentions are, and what's happening in the outer world. Because remember, what's happening in the outer world is coming from within. From within what's happening in our own consciousness, the sum total of everything we think, say, do, and feel. So Henry David Thoreau wrote a wonderful line. He said, if you do not go within, you will go without. Meaning, if you are looking at the outer world and reacting to everything that's happening in the outer world, you and I are going to get stuck. We're going to get hung up in the outer world. And creation is not coming from the outer world. Creation is coming from within. And so And what's happening in our lives is always a reflection of that consciousness that's moving through our inner reality. So it's by beginning to observe the inner reality that we can begin to see the I am that I am and its play in the outer world. Because the source of our good is coming from that inner reality. So let's make this a little different. One of the things that I've been talking about recently is, here it is the new year, and a lot of people have New Year's goals, and I'm not a big believer in goals, but I am a big believer in intentions. And I am also a big believer in becoming conscious of what your own intentions are. What is it you're seeking to create in health, in wealth, in love, and in purpose? What are your intentions around those things, right? And we begin to daily, we meditate and do our prayer, spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer around health, wealth, love, and success. Because health, wealth, love, and success all together are going to bring you to the fulfillment of your purpose, yes? If I'm in good health, if I'm able to abundantly survive, not abundantly be provided for in my life, coming from this inner connection of the I am, the infinite source of all good, I begin to work daily. I meditate in the stillness on the very beingness of my own nature, and then I use my conscious mind to direct. Ernest Holmes, the great metaphysician, says meditation is for the purpose of inbreathing spirit, and spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer is the purpose of using that in-breath of spirit for very definite and specific purposes. In other words, to fulfill our intentions around health, wealth, love, and success. So now let me tie this in to modern science. I'll try to keep this as simple as we can because we don't want to get stuck in our head. It's about how I'm feeling, but it's also about, am I conscious of what I'm putting out, and am I conscious of what the law of the circle or the law of mind is returning back to me? The law of the circle, the law of mind, the law of karma, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have, because that as is the operating principle of the law. As I am being, the law is feeding that back to me, and it's becoming my experience in the outer world. But it's not coming from the outer world, it's coming from the inner world. So here's the new science. The new science, we're at a time in history, the history of the evolution of the planet, where we are currently dealing with two operating scientific models at the same time. One of them is the quantum science model, and quantum science, the bottom line of that is the observer affects the experiment. So whatever it is that I'm looking at, my attitude toward looking at it is affecting what's happening. For example, if you're on the freeway and you see an accident and you see that people are hurt, and you're not involved directly in trying to help, you're sending healing and loving energy toward that situation. You're observing it, you're sending healing and loving energy toward that situation, and that healing and loving energy is having an impact, a definite, quantifiable, measurable impact on the situation that you're observing. Anyone observing anything has an impact on what it is you're observing. And I want to tie this in to the unrest here in the United States and America, because we have the capability of returning to peace and balance and moving toward creating a more perfect union. Obviously, we have a ways to go because we're birthing forth a new understanding of the interconnection and interrelationship between all people, all planets, all ways of being. There's no such thing as a disconnected anything. Everything is connected and interrelated, and everything has information in it, and you have the capacity to observe everything and therefore be affecting the change that's happening even by means of observing. So let's make this personal, because right now we want to use universal principles to make ourselves more in tune, more awake, more alive, and through being more in tune and more consciously awake and more alive, we're able to make a much bigger contribution to the changes, to the greater good, to the moving of a more profound pattern of wholeness into the human experience. Because what's going to happen to humanity is going to happen through humanity, just like what's going to happen to you and me is going to happen through you and me. We are the instruments through which it is happening. And when you are seeking help from the universe, then you have to be the one who is asking for it, yes? If you're seeking help from the universe, you have to be able to ask for help from the universe. Why? Oh, what's going on here? Oh yeah, that's moving. The clock is moving. I couldn't see if we were still broadcasting. Anyway, so here's how we want to use these universal laws. We want to begin to recognize that I am also observing the outcome of my life, what the law of the circle is doing in my life. And so I'm looking toward the external world, not to find my good coming from the external world, but to see if it's in alignment with my own intentions. And so the way I have described this, and I know none of us really like disharmony, but we begin to pay attention between what our personal intentions are and what's happening in the world. And as we observe the world, we can then be the observer that makes adjustments in our own attitudes, and then can see those new adjustments come out in the affairs of our world. So here's how this would work in the first person. I made a commitment many years ago through the Association for Global New Thought and the opportunity to have been introduced in a deeper way to the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi through his grandson, Arun Gandhi. And through those many meetings with Arun Gandhi and the leadership of the Association for Global New Thought at that time, I made a commitment, and this goes back 20, 25 years ago, to be nonviolent. I believe I've done pretty good with that in terms of physically not being violent. However, we're all a work in progress, and I have had angers and upsets and tempers and things that may not have been physically violent, but they were not filled with kindness and love. And so we look to see what our intention is, and then we look in our experience and see how it's coming out, and that gives us an opportunity. So if I got upset and raised my voice or got angry, and that was not an act of peace, it was not certainly physical violence, but it wasn't peaceful, because what we create with our words is really important, as we know. And so I then look to see what is it that I need to adjust so that I am returning to my own desire to be nonviolent, believing that the force of nonviolence and peaceful communication is the only way for humanity to work together toward creating a world that works for everyone. So I look in the world and I see this upsetness coming up in me, and then I decide. So for example, this week in the United States, we saw all of that unrest, and the unrest turned to violence. And as I was watching the violence unfolding, I now look back into my own consciousness at my own stand for peace and nonviolence, and it gives me an opportunity to align with the One and to affirm again, I choose to be in peace, to be peaceful, to be an instrument of peace in the world. I choose to be one of the billions and millions of peace pilgrims that are on the planet now, choosing peace over violence, choosing harmony over discord, choosing love over anything that looks unlike love. And that personal adjustment helps me to realign my inner awareness so that I know that as I now watch events unfold in this nation and indeed around the world, that I can be a place that is holding harmony and peace and divine right action in the situations that I'm observing, without being sucked in to the mob consciousness of whatever it is I'm observing. Do you follow? So long as I can be the observer at whatever it is I'm looking at, I can check it against my own vibration, like I'm going to hit the tone on the gong, right? We hit the tone on the gong, and we see that there are things that don't match that tone, right? So I choose to go back to be the place where that vibration that is the I am that I am is anchored in the infinite. I think it was Alfred Lord Tennyson who said, anchor yourself on the infinite, on that you can rely. Because when we anchor ourselves on religious beliefs or Bibles or anything in the physical world, our understanding keeps changing. And we're not anchoring where it really is. The anchor is between the universal source, God, and me. Source and I are one. And this is the big jump in the human condition. It is also the hardest thing because the ego needs to surrender itself to a divinity, to a splendor greater than anything it knows anything about. In other words, you and I are born in the image of the One, given the fullness of the One, given the law of the One, given the peace and the poise and the grace of the One. And yet we somehow think we're not quite worthy of it, and we step below that. That's why it becomes essential that we begin to anchor ourselves on the infinite and then look into the world and relate what we're seeing or experiencing in the world to our relationship with the Most High. Now, I'm in the race, but I'm not swallowed up by the race. I'm in the human condition. I'm in the stand for life and liberty and justice and freedom and equality. I'm in the stand for that. And I am standing in that regardless of what's happening in the world. And the more I stand in the places of divine right action, the more I stand in that which aligns with truth, that which aligns with harmony, that which aligns with all the eternal verities, love, peace, joy, wisdom, freedom, harmony, beauty. You choose. There are so many permanent qualities of the divine, of the all good of the divine, that are always available. And yet, if we get sucked into the news or we get sucked into what's happening in the world, we're going to get confused. We're not going to know. So here's the deal. My consciousness creates my experience. No matter what's happening in the world, my consciousness is still creating my experience. And so I am remembering that I am one with the One, that I am one therefore with all love, therefore with all power, therefore with all harmony, therefore with all beauty, and I become an instrument of love and peace and harmony and beauty. Because I am the one looking at it, I am observing it, and by observing and then adjusting my awareness in it, I am helping the human race to become more human beings, to stop racing and become present to what it is to receive the gift of life as you, and let that you that is the glory of the Most High be revealed to you through you. This is the great promise, and the promise is available to each and to all right now. So let all of us now choose to be a place of harmony, to be a place where the deeper love, the deeper truth, the deeper joy, and the deeper wisdom of the ages is moving through us to bring forth a greater harmony and a greater step toward a world that works for everyone. This is a possibility. This is the light that we are holding, and this is ours to do in this pandemic and in this purging of everything unlike harmony as we move toward an awakening world. You and I make a big difference. So please circulate this video everywhere and anywhere you can if you have found it beneficial. Tell your friends about it. We'll be back next Tuesday on Coffee with Casper. And like I say, use all of these capabilities on YouTube and on Facebook to spread the word that we're okay and we're getting better, and we will get through this to the other side, and the other side is something we will co-create that is greater and more wonderful than anything that has happened in the human condition up to this point. That's how powerful we are. So my friends, until we meet again, I invite you to go in the light, as the light, and with the light. May the long-time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide you on your way. Bye for now.